everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here and don't know me, my name is Olivia. I'm 25 years old and I was recently diagnosed with autism as an adult. So here at my channel, I try to make videos bringing awareness to what females on the spectrum look like. In this week's video of Autistically Me, I'm actually doing it on what you guys voted on, so I'm really excited to do it. And you guys voted on a video about autism and relationships. And I didn't specify if you meant my relationship with my boyfriend, so romantic relationships, or just relationships in general. So I thought I would split the video into two and do part one on just relationships in general, so non-romantic relationships, and part two with romantic relationships. So that one will be next week and it will feature my boyfriend Alex. So if you have questions for him or me to answer in that video, please leave them down in the comments. We'd be super excited to see them and answer them for you next week. One more thing before I jump into the video is that I'm definitely going to be talking about more my experiences. I can't speak for everybody on the spectrum. I'm just one person on the spectrum. So if you don't relate to these issues and you're on the spectrum, obviously that's totally fine. But I thought I would just kind of share my experiences of relationships over my life. So let's jump into the video. Throughout my whole life, relationships have been very challenging and difficult for me to keep. Basically, I'm just kind of like a terrible friend that's so bad, but I kind of am. Because relationships are really exhausting and they require a good amount of upkeep, I oftentimes just wouldn't put enough effort into them because I just physically and mentally couldn't. I was so exhausted, I couldn't do it, and so that has cost me some friendships for sure over the years. Ever since I was really little, like even a toddler, I've been very particular with who I spend my time with, and that probably sounds super bratty and stuck up, but I just prefer to be alone so that if I'm going to spend time with somebody, which takes a lot of effort from me and my brain and is pretty exhausting, I'm going to make sure I spend it with somebody that I really enjoy spending time with. I've always been very shy, which is definitely a trait of girls and women on the spectrum. And so when I did hang out with people, I would prefer one-on-one time. And basically whoever gave me that one-on-one time, I latched on to them. Someone giving me one-on-one time really truly meant the world to me. In my eyes, it was amazing and I just felt so loved and seen that this person wanted to get to know me and ask about my life and things like that. So I would become really close to whoever gave me one-on-one time. Also, when I would spend time with people, it definitely needed to be in kind of a short amount of time. It had to be in small doses because again, like I was saying, it's pretty exhausting for me and I just couldn't handle long periods of time interacting with people. I would get super cranky and grumpy and just need to be alone and recoup. So I don't know if you guys can relate to that, but I definitely would get grumpy the prolonged I spend time with somebody. For example, when I was a kid and I would have sleepovers, which wasn't often because I did not enjoy them, but if I did have sleepovers, first of all, I usually wasn't super interested in playing with said friend, so usually the person ended up playing with the friend was my little sister Natalie. So yeah, I would like play for a little bit and then I would have had enough and I would have been like, Natalie, go play with them. Natalie is the complete opposite of me. She's like super social, social butterfly. She needs to be hanging out with people at all times. And I, like, if I never saw a person for a whole month, I think I'd be fine. So when I would end up having sleepovers, like I was saying, I would play a little bit and then I'd be so exhausted and tired of them. So when we finally went to bed, I would wake up really early in the morning, sneak down the steps from my top bunk bed and go hide in my parents' room for them for as long as I could because I just needed to get away. I could not handle another moment with this friend. And this has absolutely nothing to do with them. They didn't do anything wrong. They didn't make me upset. It has everything to do with me and how my brain worked. I didn't understand that at the time because I didn't know I was autistic, but I just knew that I couldn't stand another waking moment with them. And then when I finally had to see them again in the morning when they would wake up, I would like constantly bug them and be like, so like, when are your mom coming to pick you up? Like just out of curiosity, like there's no rush or anything, but like is it gonna be at like 9 a.m. sharp or like what? Usually they'd be like, oh yeah, they're not coming until like 5 p.m. and I'd be like, oh, Also throughout my life, I very much have preferred older people and males. So for example, I really never had too much in common. I'm a very old soul with people my own age, peers my own age, and I really didn't connect with them or want anything to do with them most of the time. And I would much rather prefer and actually love to hang out with their parents or say my aunts and uncles instead of my cousins. So I really enjoyed hanging out with my parents' friends, and even to this day I enjoy hanging out with people much older than me. And some of my friends from growing up, I'm still very close with their parents, and I have a fantastic time with them, and I truly love hanging out with them rather than the person my age. That probably sounds so terrible, but I just really prefer older people. And then with males, I think this is a very common trait for people on the autism spectrum as well, to prefer males, because males are just simpler creatures. They're easier to get along with, there's no drama, there's no small talk, and the whole part of relationships being hard for people on the spectrum is because there's a lot of work involved, and we don't understand social cues too well, and we have no time for small talk and silly things like that that we're totally uninterested in. And so males are just more apt to not do that stuff, so I think we gravitate towards males. The two people I spent most of my time with growing up was two guys, and they were family friends of ours, and I would spend the night at their house for like a week straight, and I never got tired of them, and I just loved hanging out with them. They were always making me laugh. But if those had been girls, oh gosh, like a couple hours max that I could spend with them, and then I was like, I'm out. Even though a lot of people on the spectrum are really shy and we seem antisocial, it's not so much that we are, it just depends on the setting. So in one setting, I can be very antisocial, such as if I'm at a party or with people I don't know, I'll be like the one over in the corner like, when can I go home? I don't want to be here. But then if I'm with a group of people that knows me without my mask and I can be myself around, which isn't a lot of people, but when I'm around those people, I am super bubbly and outgoing. And if those same people at the party like looked at me through a window or something, it'd be like, who the heck is this girl? So I think that's a common misconception with people on the spectrum. It's not so much that we're antisocial, it's just sometimes we're antisocial, and to be social and comfortable, we have to be with the right group of people and in the right setting. Another thing I'll often do, which is a super bad habit and is gonna sound terrible, is I'm a bridge burner. And I think this is an autistic trait. I was reading it in a book about autism, so it made me feel less like a terrible person, but I probably still am a little bit. So I'd love to know if you do this too. But basically, if a friendship or relationship ever got too demanding of me, I would kind of shut down, and instead of trying to work it out with the friend or, you know, put more effort into it, I would just kind of burn the bridge and be like, see ya, and like never talk to them again sometimes, which I know sounds so terrible, but my brain just couldn't handle continuing this relationship that drained me. It would happen also if I was not interested in the friendship, and especially on top if they demanded more from me and I just was like, this doesn't make me happy, this stresses me out, it's not worth my time, so bye. And I think that sometimes that will relate to my somewhat lack of empathy, is that I just don't really care, which again sounds so terrible, and it's like I want to care, I just physically can't. And I just would kind of say, you know, the friendship isn't worth it to me, I'm not getting anything out of it, and it really would never upset me, even if it upset the other person. Another terrible habit that I have, which you guys are probably gonna think I'm a terrible person after watching this, is usually a person only has one chance in my book. There's no second chances, which makes me sound super conceited and stuck up and just terrible. But again, it's like my brain, if something happens in a relationship or something, or this person does something that I view as negative, my brain has an extremely hard time overcoming that and getting myself to forgive them and let it go, because I'm definitely like a grudge holder and hold on to things. And so it's nearly impossible for my brain to move on from said incident and just, you know, move on with the relationship. And so a lot of times I've lost friends as well because my brain just can't get over an incident that happened. Another reason I'm a bad friend is oftentimes I'll just completely honestly forget to ask and be interested in what the other person is doing. And I think this is another thing a lot of people on the spectrum deal with, because if it's not a special interest of ours, we can be very uninterested and we don't understand why we should be interested in it. So oftentimes, when someone asks about my day or how my life is and I'll tell them, I'll forget that I should then ask the same of them, and I'll reread my text and be like, oh my gosh, I'm so terrible, I didn't respond. So I've taught myself and obviously learned that that is something I should do, and I do it, but again, it's very hard for me to be interested in stuff that I'm not interested in, and it's hard to fake for us on the spectrum. Also, throughout my life, relationships haven't been super important to me. I've always had just very close family friends and a few close friends, and those relationships were very important to me and mean the world to me. But friendships that are shallow and don't really have any deeper meaning below the surface, those are completely unimportant to me, and I literally couldn't care less about maintaining those relationships, which I guess that's a theme in this video. I sound terrible, but I'm just trying to be honest. So for those relationships, I could let them go and never give them another thought. Another issue that cost me some friends and family is I can be too honest. A lot of people on the spectrum have no filter and we're brutally honest and say what we're thinking, and I've done that in many situations over my years to friends and family. If they're doing something wrong and I think it's wrong, then I'll tell them. Where everybody else, is like keeping quiet and they don't dare like mess with them, I'll be like, what are you guys doing? I'll tell them to their face, and I will tell them to their face. And I'm not trying to be mean or anything. In my brain, I'm honestly trying to help them by telling them the truth, but this has obviously cost me some relationships by doing so. But I wouldn't change it, because I'm not gonna hold my tongue when they're doing something wrong, or, I think that they need to hear this advice, because in my brain, they really do need to hear it, even if maybe what is socially acceptable is for me to bite my tongue. Overall, relationships for people on the spectrum can be very hard work because they're mentally exhausting and they just don't come natural to us, but we can learn how to be better friends, and it's something that I work on every day to be a better friend, and I've taught myself how to do things to be a better friend and make more of an effort. It just doesn't come natural, but you can teach yourself if you want to be a better friend, and I think we can all make ourselves better people. So anyways, thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, please like and subscribe. I would love to have you here. I'm so excited for everyone who watches my videos and gives me the sweetest comments. Again, next week I'll be doing the part 2 to this video on romantic relationships throughout my life, which is literally one. But anyways, if you have any questions for my boyfriend and me, please leave them down below and we'll be really excited to answer. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next week on an all new episode of Autistically Me.